from a federated file standpoint, so you can see, and you saw on the agenda too, both of these have coordination, but a few different flavors on what they do. So federated files more so for the intelligent attributed information. Not the container files won't have that, but for federated files to really provide those, the data validation, being able to run clash detection using conflict analysis and getting through those. So what you're going to see, and I'll zoom in here up at the top. So this is part of the digital delivery and CAD manual that's going to be released. We're submitting this to CDOT at the end of the month. We're updating a few comments currently, almost through that, going through all the regions. We touched on this a little bit a couple of meetings ago, but walking through file federation and really kind of what that means is we really, like with a roadway file, for instance, you'll see on here we have mainline, side roads, frontage roads, and then you even dissect it a little bit more. Okay, different state highways, is it connector, arterials, those types of things. What that means is so like on a main line, I'm probably going to have a corridor. On that mainline corridor, I have State Highway X, and maybe there's another corridor that's State Highway Y. Okay, well, State Highway Y, that should probably be a separate corridor if it's intersecting or based on project. And again, everything that we talk about is project specific. So what we're talking about as we do a lot of these trainings, as we go through this, is probably a little bit more on some urbanized type of projects, or longer projects, or different projects that we might go through there. So we're going to go through on the federated roadway. What that means is, oh yeah, ADOT, yeah. So one thing you'll see in here, this one, so again, we're still updating stuff. So this was a comment that I have to update. Just so, and we've talked about this before too, we have worked with many different states. So again, this wasn't done in just HDR doing it. We worked with a bunch of other folks as well, and other state DOTs. So again, we're trying to line up the industry as best as possible with everyone. Also understanding each state has different needs. So you'll see a lot of different information that we have from a CDOT standpoint that pertains to CDOT only will be there, but you're going to see some other elements that are similar to ADOT, to UDOT, to PennDOT, to a bunch of different other entities. So, and the reason for that is we didn't just do this, come up with things. We've researched, we've gone through a lot of things, what works best. And that's really what we're trying to provide for CDOT, is the best thing that we can provide. So with that said, through the federated roadway and main lines, all of those different things that I'm talking about, that's what I'm going to go through in the DGN itself. So what this means is I can use it again for purposes of data-rich information. So federated roadway means I have data that I can compare to and manipulate. So even like eye models and different things, and I'll run through that with the clash detection. And I'm actually going to use Bentley Infrastructure Cloud for that. It's a very similar process in ORD. It's just kind of showing and utilizing what the clash detection would look like from those data-rich environments. So let me pull up hopefully the right one here. So those are some of the uses and benefits of that. And then what you see here is a lot of line work, right? Just looks like just 2D line work, information, things like that. What this is if I hover over a line, you're going to see, well, that's a feature element. So these are just the 2D feature lines, really 3D feature lines that are coming through that 3D model of my corridors. So what we've done from a standpoint from a federated roadway is we have brought in all of our different corridors for that federated roadway, pulled those together, and made that its federated file itself. So these are all roadway corridor files. We brought those in, matched those up. Is there a little bit of work that needs to be done? Sure. There's some clipping and some other things that need to happen, some masking, things like that to connect everything. But that is one thing that we've done. For instance, you can see as I zoom in and out, there's a line that goes through, but that is masked out. So those are some of the things that we do with our design file. So instead of going in and having a separate file, that's a 2D line file, and then I have a model file, which we've done in the past for a long time, this makes it one file. I'm utilizing one file for my design purposes, my model purposes, my deliverable purposes from both a plan standpoint, even from a digital model standpoint. I can utilize a file instead of multiple files. So now what I'm able to do is concentrate more on the design and the changes in the design versus trying to compare, okay, does my line work match up with my model? Does my model match up with my line work? We get away from, and I'll call it that risk of having those two not match, having those two not line up. Now we're able to do less work of, instead of drawing a bunch of line work over here, we can utilize what we've been doing from our corridors and our models themselves. So that's what this file is in itself, is all of the corridors pulled together in a federated file that I can use for data rich environment or information. So again, as I hover over, you're going to see these come from different areas of templates, linear, it could be linear templates, could be the corridor templates, those types of things. But what it does is it has intelligent information from those features. They're all feature driven. So that's in essence an example of federated file. Geometry can be another one. Let's say we have 20 different geometries. We have mainline, we have side roads, we have driveways, maybe we have an interchange and ramps. Those are all different geometries. Those should be contained within their file, and those should be in a federated file together. And what that federated means, they're brought together through referencing, not brought together and merged. They're brought together and connected through that referencing. So that's really, in essence, for a federated file, what we're getting at. An iModel, which I'll show with the Bentley Infrastructure Cloud, is basically a federated project model. Brings in all of my data, all of my information, so I can compare and contrast, run conflict analysis, really check the design elements from a real world aspect of a 3D aspect. So any questions on that before I kind of jump into just like line work to feature and different things? Because I wanted to spin it a little bit to show what that line work to feature is and why it's important to really start to gravitate towards utilizing features instead of just dumb line work, especially when we can. So any questions on that?
You're lucky. No questions.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's go to, and I think I have the other file up. So as you can see in here, there's also a separate file. And in this separate file, you can see that it's a level, that it's a complex chain, it's a line. Doesn't really have any information to it. It's just a dumb line work with a level from the workspace that's associated to it. So for instance, this was all the fence line that needs to be replaced in a project. So instead of just having just line work itself, what we can do is come into same file. Again, I just have some line work. Some of it's connected, some of it's not connected. What I want to do is I want to create these, and we're going to use the geometry tool for this. I want to create a complex by element. And the reason I want to do that is because if I can create a complex by element and turn it into a civil rule or to a feature that has information, has data to it, it provides me a lot more opportunity down the road, especially if I want to pull quantities, if I want to do some of those things. We went over tabs a little bit last time. We went over quantity reports. What this can do is it can help you with those quantity reports instead of going and measuring, updating a tab with just dumb line work. Well, now I've got features so I can actually pull information and pay item information. Jody.
Are you pulling this fence from an existing topography or is this proposed?
So this is all pretty good point. This is all proposed fence line. It's not for existing. You would be, that would be kind of a different thing as it comes in through the survey and the line work. Those are already going to be identified features that come through there more than likely. So from a proposed standpoint, again, if I go in and, okay, I know our proposed fence and you start drawing in just line work, this is how you can turn those into data-rich information. And you can turn this into informational data, intelligent content for attributed information.
I want to add one thing. If you guys received from survey a existing fence is just a level, that's something wrong because all based on TMAS and he will actually get that coded and everything. So it should be just a proposed, what Jeremy referring to.
Yep. So I'm going to go to geometry and then complex geometry. I'm going to pick complex by element. So when I pick complex by element, what's going to show up, hopefully, there we go. So I'll have a feature definition and a name, and I can have, most of the time, I think, if I remember right, the default comes up on manual. Manual, right? It's just like doing complex chain. Same thing. So if I come in here, go to automatic, this is default 0.033. That's fine. I know they're at 0, so that's really kind of what I want. A lot of times I'll just do 0.01. For this one, though, I want to pick the combination fence. I don't really want to do guardrail. I want to come in and I want to do fences. So I'm going to pick fences. So woven wire. So it's going to give a name of fence 1. And again, as I go down the line, maybe this has a property owner that I want to give it a name. So let's just call it George's fence. So what I'm going to do, locate first element. So I wanted to go through and pick. Why it didn't do that, I don't know. I'm going to change this to manual. So if that happens there, and make sure you pay attention to the arrow, because if I do pick down here, it's going to go the wrong way. So I want to make sure that I pick at the end and then pick at this end so that I can connect those two. So as I go through, left click, right click for accept. So again, the information looks something like this. There's not a lot there. Now that I changed it, you can see all the other information that came about. Now I've got pay item information. So because I picked the correct feature, that feature has that pay item associated to it. It gives me that class of 607 fence type wire, and you can see there's pay item. Well, it's none right now. Well, if I know what the pay item is, I can come in, I can go ahead and select this pay item itself, and it's going to give me my options. And these are already what has been built in. As we talked about last time, that is something that Bentley's been working on. They're working on from a standpoint of pay items and getting all of this information in here. So some of this information, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick fence combination with, let's go with treated wooded post. So I'm going to pick this element. Well, now I've got not only information for my pay item, but I also have information for my quantity, my unit, those types of things. So I can then run a report on that. Even if, let's say it's a different type of fence, it's going to split it out to that pay item. So when I run my quantity reports, let's say I've got 4 different types of fences, I'm going to get linear foot information on all of those. So instead of going in and just trying to identify what that is, I have a tabulation that I can spit out by assigning intelligent information, attributed information to these elements that also then correlate into, as long as that feature has a 3D cell, 3D information tied to it, when I go into my 3D model, it will produce a fence that looks like a fence and moves that direction. So this is one way to move forward from just having done line work in your file to having intelligent information in your file. It may look like it's more work to do up front, but in the end, once you've done this, again, you have a P item, you have information, you have something that you can quantify against and tabulate. And not only that, it's information that can carry forward through a deliverable, whether it's for information only or not, from a model that has that information into it that gets passed on to that contractor. So that way it ties what some of the expectations are from, okay, this is this fence, this is this fence. It's easy to see. It's easy to know what we're doing. The model matches the plan. It gives more trust between the designer and the contractor that the model matches the plans and is a derivative of. So, Stephen.
Yeah. My colleagues and I spend a ton of time troubleshooting files. We want to be as efficient as we can. If we have content that we can use, we don't want to have to recreate it. Please, though, please do not use standard microstation elements with either this complex or, Jeremy, you want to pull the design elements down under general tools? On geometry tab, general tools, left side, just
here.
toggle. There's also a create civil rule feature, which will take microstation elements and turn them into these intelligent civil objects. Do not ever use either of these on an alignment that you'll be building corridors off of. I spent my morning with a colleague troubleshooting files. You got to use the civil content where we're going to consume that downstream. It won't always go bad, but when it does, it's really hard to back those out. So never for alignments. For fences, great. Edge of pavement, if you can do it with the civil content, you're going to be a lot safer with that once you're consuming that into linear templates or corridors. So just please don't do it on your mainline alignments. Your baseline alignments that you'll be doing corridor modeling off of. Okay,
Great.
off my soapbox.
Thank you for the reminder, Stephen. I think our training, all our customized training will show that, and for use the civil feature and then linear feature that you can pull down, set up before, or how you change, if you start mistakenly doing with the drafting tool, how you change it and convert it to civil features. Yeah, great point, Stephen.
And you guys can see the difference of complex, and that's why Stephen said that too, because complex by element gives you this information. The civil rule information gives you geometric information.
I think most people are aware, but there's some people tend to use that drawing habit, microstation drafting tool. We need to shy away from that.
We need to shy away from them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of functionality in those geometry tools. They take a little bit of getting used to, but the ability to be dynamic in our models and this additional attribution becomes really crucial.
Yeah.
Chris had a question in there real quick. Yes, civil linear elements are featurized and behave in the same manner as a created civil object or manually created civil object.
I don't know if most people know the drop down of the selected the feature. We have linear, and there's fencing and stuff like. Prior to start creating the fence, you can actually select it from the drop down on the feature. Yep, go down to
Sorry, it went to my other screen. It got at me.
So linear, you can see a lot of as you can use. Once you set that and set it as an active, like the light bulb, click on it, you can actually
Gotta set your use active feature.
that use active. That exactly
On the left side.
Yeah, it's sorry, it's trying to switch to my other. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Once you set that, you could do, and thus you don't need to do anything else because now you set that feature definition.
And that'll work for any linear content,
Yep,
both horizontal and vertical.
yep. Thank you, Stephen. That's a great point, reminder for everyone.
So I don't know if people saw that too, the difference. So I drew a line, just drew a line with the information of just a regular place line versus doing a geometry line. And you can see the difference between the two. I've got a pay item already versus nothing.
Speaking of item types, I know most of you are new to that concept, but with the upcoming release of 2024, I am working on giving you guys instructions step by step how to use item type. So you will get to the upcoming release and you'll get familiar with it. So no worry about the item type. I know most of you probably don't know how to work with it yet because it's relatively new.
Okay. So sorry, maybe stop recording and then I'll have you start again. I'll jump into that clash detection then for a conflict analysis so people can get a flavor of that.